Hey guys, welcome back. This is History of Futurama Season 2, Episode 2 of my show, and this is gonna be about Episode 2 of Season 2, basically. Now before I start talking about it, I just want to mention a couple of things with the episode. This video is actually gonna count as, I think, the second one for this week, because I posted a video yesterday, so after today I'm probably going to be taking a little bit of a break from uploading until next week, or maybe till next weekend or something, just because of the fact that, well, there's 20 episodes in season 2 and everything, and so if I do 2 videos at a time, I should be able to finish it. But anyway, the name of this episode is actually self-explanatory. Episode 2 in Season 2 is known as Mars University. But before I start talking about it, there's actually a little bit of a funny thing that happens in this episode that I wanted to mention before I started, but I'm gonna save mentioning it for when it actually happens. But basically, the way this episode starts off is basically the professor brings this mysterious crate into the Planet Express building and tells them that he needs them to go with him to make the delivery of the package that's in the crater. And then Bender's wondering who the package is for, but then the professor says that it's for him, and then Bender takes it as the fact that because it's for the professor, they don't have to deliver it because he already has it. So I can't actually remember if it's Bender or if I think it's Bender that mentions that it's for him. And then basically that's when, like I said, when Bender thinks that they don't have to deliver it because he's already has it, but then he explains to them that he needs it delivered to his office on Mars, in the university on Mars. So essentially, he does want to have it delivered to himself, but actually delivered to his office that's in the university, which is on Mars in the episode. So they still have to leave the planet in order to make the delivery. But he goes with them to do that part. I just wanted to mention it. Anyway, they go to Mars University to deliver the professor's package, and when Fry basically sees the university on Mars, he's astounded by it, and then he says that back in the 20th century, he's astounded by it, and he says that back in the 20th century, they had no idea there was a university on Mars. And then the professor basically tells him that, well, basically in Fry's time, the planet Mars was a barren, unlivable wasteland, and he compares it to basically to Utah. I don't know if he means the Utah in the timeline in the year 3000, or I think he's referring to the way Utah is in the series in the year 3000. That's just my assumption about it, but if anyone has any other assumptions about that, just let me know in the comments. But I think that's a fair assessment. But he said that unlike Utah, it was eventually made livable when the university was founded in one of the later years before the year 3000. And then when Fry hears that, he wonders if it's okay to breathe the air on Mars, and he says that Professor Farnsworth says, of course. So because of that, Fry takes a breath of air on Mars because of it now being livable, because of the university being founded on there. And then basically what happens is, afterward, Bender comes upon his while they're walking, while the professor is delivering the package, Oh, speaking of the package, the thing that was inside the package was moving around at the beginning segment of the episode, so he had to use a tranquilizer dart to basically sedate what was in the package. And now I'm gonna explain what that is when I get to that point. Anyway, they're walking around, and then Bender sees a chapter of his old robot fraternity at the university, which ironically, this is gonna sound funny because it's called, apparently it's spelled ERR as an acronym, like it's, the actual terminology for the ERR part is Epsilon Rho, so basically ERR. Oh my god. Oh, I just find that sort of hilarious because of the fact that it's the E, but it's also with a double R thing, so, because basically, I don't know, but it's sort of funny in this case. And then the others are surprised to hear that Bender did actually go to college, and then he says that he did go to college, he went to bending college, and that he majored in bending, which makes sense because he's a bending unit robot, so of course they didn't want to major in bending, and then Fry basically asks him what was his minor, and then he says that his minor was Robo-American Studies. Oh my god. Oh my god, because basically people who go to college have to have a major degree in one field and a minor degree in another, so it makes sense from a university/college standpoint, I mean. But that's just what I know about it. I mean, I'm not in a university or in a college or anything, but I know that much. But anyway, getting back on track, Bender knocks on the door to the robot fraternity, and then this robot that's there, when he sees Bender, he first wonders if he's, he asks him if he's here to fumigate the moose head, and then basically, Bender says that he isn't, and he explains that he's an Epsilon from way back, so they do this weird robot secret handshake thing, and then while they're doing it, the robot that he's doing with the handshake with, his finger comes off during the process, and the robot says, close enough, and then he said thanks, and he gives him his finger back, and then Bender says that that all the coolest robots in this fraternity, but then he sees the only two robots in there are playing basically chess, and that's when he's like, uh-oh, nerds! And this is the funny part, when they were playing chess, the white robot that's playing with the other one, that's a purplish robot, is saying mate in 135 moves, in 130 moves, even though he hasn't made a move. So I'm guessing he's some kind of robot with some kind of, supercomputer that figures out, like a supercomputer data file that figures out how to win. So that's just what I think from both watching the episode, and that's just my assumption. But when Bender sees that they're the only two ones in there, he's like, uh-oh, nerds! And then the three robots that are in the fraternity introduce themselves. The one that Bender did the secret handshake with, he says his name is Gear Shift, and he's the chapter president of Epsilon Rho this time around. And, he's the chapter president, and the two robots that were playing chess, one of them is named Oily, and the other is called Fatbot. Now, oh my god. Now, the Fatbot one I understand because he's got a bit of a round, he's a robot with a fat, belly, so it makes sense for him to be called that. But the other one, the one that was, made within in 138 moves, is being called Oily. I don't know if the oil has to do with a supercomputer or if it's just a robot term. Anyway, then Bender says that they're all losers, and then he tells them that his name is Bender. But when they hear that, they get surprised by that. He's like, because Oily's like, Bender from Bending State, Bender? Wow, you're a legend around here. And then Fatbot basically says that in one whole night, he heard that in one whole night, he drank entire keg of booze, ran across campus, and stuffed 100 or so humans into a phone booth. And then Bender says that is true, but he also says that a lot of the people that he stuffed into the phone booth were children. I'm okay. You can ask me.
What do you want for your rice?
Soy sauce, I guess.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that, guys. But anyway, basically he decides to leave, and then basically, but Gearship tells him that he can't leave because he tells Bender that he can't because they need his help, because he tells them that they're the lamest frat on campus, and even Hillel has better parties than them. Gearship wants Bender to stay at the university and teach them how to be cool, and then he agrees to it, but then he has some conditions, because he's like, well, okay, and the conditions that he has is like, but he said that he'll need 12 kegs of beer, a continuous tape of Louie, and a regulation 2-story ladder. Oh my god. Now those first two I understand, because it's being a robot, but because Bender's a robot that's powered by alcohol, so the keg I understand, the keg of beer I understand, and the continuous tape of Louie I understand a little bit. But the regulation 2-story panty raid ladder. Oh my god. I mean, I know it's an adult comedy. I get that. But if you're not gonna do any raiding of panties, then there's no reason to get a panty raid ladder. The reason why I say that is because they don't actually use it to go into the thing. I'll explain later when I get to that part. But anyway, after that, when they leave the fraternity, Fry says that being on the college reminds him of his own college days. Now, in his case, the college he went to wasn't actually a real one. It was one that he went to when he was at a fair called Coney Island College. And we know this, and we see what happens to him through a flashback. Basically, he's at this fair at the docks, and the proprietor of the Coney Island University ride is basically wondering who wants to learn physics, and Fry in the flashback he's nonchalantly thinks it's can't hurt, and then the manager in charge of the ride tells him that keep your hands inside the car, shut up and have fun. And then basically it goes back into the present timeline, and Fry's like, good old Coney Island College, and he says, go white fish. But then Leela explains that she thinks that he's not the educated type, but then he said that he's like, oh yeah, read 'em and weep, because he brings out this paper that's from the Coney Island College ride at the fair, and then he said that because of that certificate, he's a certified college dropout. But then Leela explains to him that everyone knows that 20th century colleges were basically expensive daycare centers, and the professor agrees with that and with Leela about that, and he says that by the year 3000's current academic standards, Fry is merely a high school dropout. And when Fry hears that, he gets upset, and he decides to roll into Mars University and drop out all over again to get the same respect that any other college dropout gets. And basically, after that, what happens is Fry is signing up for the courses and that's when Amy shows up, and then Amy wonders what he'll be taking, and then he says that he doesn't know, and then basically he sees the professor, and then he asks him what class he's teaching this semester, and he says that the same thing he teaches every semester, which is the mathematics of quantum neutrino fields. And he says that he basically made the name up so no student would dare take it. And this is the funny part about it is Fry, I guess because he's a little stupid, misinterprets what the professor says. Like he said mathematics of quantum neutrino fields, but in Fry's dim-witted mind, he said, to him, it's like he said mathematics of wonton burrito meals. Oh my god, I'm sorry, that's just so hilarious. And he said that he's thanking the professor and he'll be there, but then the professor says that he doesn't know how to teach. He's a professor, and then basically what happens is after that, Don't worry. Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Basically, what happens after that is, Fry basically, after enrolling in the professor's class, basically, what happens in the next scene is Bender and the the members of the Robot House fraternity. I'm just, not really backtracking because, what happens basically, I'm not backtracking here because I forgot anything. I'm not skipping ahead either. I'm just trying to cover some of the most important parts of the storyline of the episode. So that's why I'm getting back to the Robot House. Basically, in the next scene with them, first what happens is after Fry rolls in Mars University, he goes to reside at the financial aid dorms, which are basically these abandoned dorms that are for people that don't have any money. And he says that the room's not bad for a single, like, two beds, two desks, and then he hears a knocking, and he thinks that knocking isn't from the door, and he says that it's he thinks it's like a woodpecker, but then Leela says that basically, he thinks that the knocking is actually Fry's roommate, and then he tells the roomie to come in, and then basically, but then the door opens and then the monkey shows up, and then the monkey's like, I got the bug! Now I'm gonna backtrack back to Bender and the Robot House fraternity. They were causing a little bit of mischief in this episode, like not mischief as in like TPing or anything, but they were using the panty raid ladder to basically spy on a women's fraternity. Well, not really spy on the humans in the women's fraternity, but take a look at the computer that's in the fraternity house, and then when they see what's behind the computer, and after the computer malfunctions, Bender says that someone's been invading computer, and then one of the female in the dorm takes off the computer screen's cover, and then they see it and they get surprised by it, and then Bender stretches his eyes out of his head, which presses against the glass, which then later causes them to fall onto this building that's beneath them, and then which is apparently the servants' quarters for the Snooty people, like the Snooty fraternity, in the vicinity, like, because one of them's like, I say, you've damaged our servants' quarters and our servants. And the other one's like, this time Robot House has gone too far. And then basically, Bender's like, cheese, and then they start running. I just wanted to get to that part, but now I'm going to backtrack to the part with Fry and Leela and the monkey. Now I'm going to explain who the monkey is. The monkey's name is Gunther, but basically what happens is, after that, after Fry meets the monkey, he's like, my roommate's he said that his roommate's a monkey, and then Gunther says that, brilliant deduction, you're a credit to your species, and then basically the professor shows up and he tells Bender, Fry that he met his roommate Gunther, and then they're wondering how the professor knows that monkey, and then the professor explains that he was his prize experiment, and he was the contents of that stinking crater that they were transporting, that he had to shoot with a tranquilizer dart. And then basically Gunther says that he'd rather live in a crater than be in a crate than be roommates with someone who's an idiot like Fry. And then basically Leela wonders how Gunther is able to talk being a monkey, because normally monkeys don't talk. And then basically, well, I think it's actually Fry that wonders if how he can talk. And then basically, the professor explains that the reason why Gunther can talk is actually because of the hat that he has, which produces sunspots, which cause him to have abnormal brainwaves. And those abnormal brainwaves are what causes them to talk. And then basically Gunther says that he's wasting his time because Fry's not gonna, there's no way an idiot like Fry's gonna understand it, but he said that he understands the word hat. And then the professor says that basically he arranged for them to be roommates for one reason, and that reason was so that he would only have to know one phone number, and he tells them to shake and make up. And then basically what happens is, after that, the Dean Vernon is then working. The dean of the university is basically working on his model ship that's there, and that's when one of the people at the university on the intercom tells him that the students from Robot House are here, and then he gets annoyed by that. And then when Bender shows up and tries to explain everything to them, the dean gets upset with them. He's like, quiet, you robots are a disgrace to this university. Whenever the campus liquor store is looted, it's Robot House. Whenever the fire alarm is pulled, it's Robot House. Whenever a corpse is desecrated. And then after the third thing, Bender tries to explain that, but then the dean's like, enough! From this day forth, Robot House is under dodecatuple secret probation. And then after that, the student robots in the Robot House are getting upset. And then Fatbot says to his mom, I don't know if he meant this literally, but I think people just say this figuratively speaking, but they say, you know, when someone gets upset that they did something wrong and they get punished for it, they usually say, like, their parents are gonna, like, kill them and stuff. I think he was using it, I think it's a figure of speech, because I don't think a parent, even a robot parent, would kill a child. I really don't think so. Anyway, then the dean's like, tries to get back to his model ship because he tells them that, now if you'll excuse me, I have to get back to the one thing that's kept me sane these past 8 years, my model ship. But he goes to look at his model ship and he realizes that it's not there, and the reason why it's not there is because Fatbot starts eating it, and then Gearship is like, Fatbot, no! And then Fatbot explains that when he gets nervous, he eats, and then Bender and the rest of Robot House run away, and they're like, and then the dean's like, Robot House! Oh my god. Anyway, basically what happens is Fry's trying to pick up this girl that's at this diner that's at the university, but she turns him down, and then basically after seeing the monkey, she gives the monkey her phone number, and then basically, which is Gunther, and Gunther says that, hey, you like bananas? I got her number. How do you like them bananas? And he shows her the number in the window, and him the number in the window that he got from Chrissy, and then he gets annoyed by that, and basically in the next scene, what happens is, the professor is teaching his class, and then basically he says, by process of elimination, the electron must taste like grape aid, and then basically Fry eventually shows up for the class, and then after he said that he was late, he said that he overslept, and then basically the professor startled till about 3 p.m., and then basically Fry explains that it's his obnoxious monkey roommate. He kept him up all night with his thinking, just thinking and thinking, and he was trying to make him look stupid. And then basically he explains to not be jealous, without Gunther's special hat, he wouldn't be any more intelligent than you and stuff. And then basically what happens is after that, basically what happens after that is, oh, speaking of Gunther, I'm just gonna backtrack here. They did actually do a small little segment of him where he was in the same school as Fry, and like in the 20th century history class as Fry, which Fry thought it would be a breeze because he was from the 20th century, but he was an idiot. I just wanted to backtrack to that part since I kind of missed it. But anyway, and after the professor gets upset with him about that, he's like, he tells Fry that monkey is his prized experiment. If he and the monkey don't start getting along, he'll have them both neutered, and then basically, Fry says that that'll show him, and then basically what happens is then it goes into the segment in the episode where they're doing the parents' weekend thing, which is basically the parents of the students come to the university for the weekend to visit and their children, which is normal for any university to do that, because a student who's a child who's away from his parents while he's at school has to have contact with them somehow, so it makes sense. And basically after that, basically what happens is Amy's introducing the dean to her parents, and then basically after that what happens is Fry starts eating the stuff at there, and that's when Gunther shows up, and he's like, he's like, sorry, I was late. I was at a study session with Chrissy, and then basically Fry gets annoyed while he's chewing on the food that he has because the monkey had to show up, and then basically what happens is, the professor tells Gunther that he's glad he's here because in honor of Parents' Weekend, he's got a special surprise for him, and he opens this crate to show him these two monkeys, which are essentially Gunther's parents in this episode, and then after Fry sees these monkeys, he let them out to cause a ruckus, and then afterward, after that ruckus is done with, basically what happens is the Bender says that the party's winding down, so they figure that they should take a road trip to Tijuana to get Fatbot some action, and then they get excited about that, and then Fatbot gets a little nervous because he's like, it's my first time, I'm really nervous, and he starts eating this picture, and then the dean gets upset because he thinks Robot House is responsible, which is not. It's actually the monkeys that are responsible, but it's because he hates Robot House so he gets angry with them when he sees them. He's like, Robot House! And then afterward, basically, after Leela and Fry return to the dorm, she tells them that what he did to Gunther was cruel. At the risk of sounding like an after-school special, she gets they learned who the real animal is here, and then basically Fry says it's peer pressure, but it's not because she's referring to him. And then they go into the dorm, which is dark, and they see this thing, someone's in there, and with this pointed thing, and then Fry thinks that someone has a gun, but they turn the light on, and they realize that it's just Gunther with the banana, and he's getting upset. And then when Leela sees that, she's saying that what's going on because she thought he didn't like bananas, and he says that of course he does. He tried so hard to fit in, but seeing his parents act that way made him realize that he's just a primitive beast. And then basically afterward, what happens is Leela says that it's so sad. She didn't know that monkeys could cry. And then, well, actually, first what happens is she says that he's not like other monkeys. He has a hat. And then he says in a sad way, so what? I mean, sure, he says that sure the hat makes him smart and stuff, but it doesn't make him happy. And then he starts crying. And then Leela says that that's so sad. She didn't even know monkeys could cry. And then he says that they can't, and that it's all the hat's doing. And then basically, Fry tells Gunther that basically, if he's so miserable here, why doesn't he just go back to the jungle? And then he says that the jungle, and then he thinks that's a good idea, but he says that he couldn't do that to the professor. He's the professor's prize experiment, and he's like a father to him. And then Leela says that, but he's not his father. That guy in the punch bowl was his father. And then basically, when Fry hears about the punch bowl part, he starts spitting the punch out. And then basically after that, in the next scene, what happens is Fry and Gunther, as well as the other students, are taking this exam, and then basically Farnsworth said that he look at him, he's so proud, and then basically Fry thinks he means him, but the professor's referring to Gunther, so he presses a button to shock Fry, and then, which is what happened in the previous portion of this episode when they when he was giving the wrong answer about what the TV thing was. And then basically, while they're taking the test, Gunther is writing stuff that looks like a banana on the screen, like on the paper, and he looks out at the jungle, and then after a little bit of a montage where it's a jungle beat kind of thing, he starts losing it and snaps and takes off the hat and crashes through the window, and runs off into the jungle on Mars. And then basically the professor's like, oh, I always knew he would one day run off like this. Why didn't I break his legs? And then in the next scene, what happens is, the professor gets upset that Gunther left in the middle of the exam, and then Leela inquires about that, and he said that he's afraid, so all he left behind was a term paper slathered in his own feces. He tied with Fry, and then basically Fry said that he guessed that Gunther realized that he was right when he told him to go back to the jungle, but then when the professor hears that part, he gets upset with Fry, because he's like, you what? After I spent months slaving over a hot monkey brain? But then Fry tries to defend himself when he said that, hey, don't try to blame me. You tried to force Gunther to be a human, but he's not. He's an animal. He belongs in the wild. Or in the circus on one of those little tricycles, which is kind of funny because there are monkeys that perform at the circus on tricycles. So it makes sense that Fry would compare that to that part, which is kind of funny when you think about it. And in this case, I kind of have to agree with Fry. Even if it's forcing even if the hat makes someone smart, even if the hat makes the monkey talk, it's not right to force something to be something that it's not supposed to be. And then basically, but that's just my opinion about it. And then basically, Farnsworth tries to defend himself by saying that Gunther's actually, he thinks he's better off being intelligent, and he tries to tell Leela to tell Fry that, and then she says that she's staying out of it, and then she whispers to him what they're planning to do with Gunther, and then after the whisper, Farnsworth's like, what? Because he's old, so he probably is a little deaf, so he couldn't hear. But then Leela explains that she said that they'll go to the jungle and let Gunther decide once and for all. But then Farnsworth said that, what again? Because even though Leela said it loudly, he probably still is old, so he couldn't hear it as well. So I think it's because of the fact that he was old in the series. So that's just my opinion about it anyway. What happens is, after that, then the fraternities are doing this, basically this boat race, and then the dean is basically saying that they know the rules. Whichever fraternity wins the regatta becomes head of the Greek council, and should that house be under any sort of multiple secret probation, it'll be lifted, and he'll be forced to serve as a grand marshal in a parade honoring them. And then basically, first what happens is the robot house bring their watercraft to the race, and when Dean Vernon actually says that, he looks at them, and then the Snooty people are insulting the robots again by saying that the robot house's watercraft is as ill created as themselves, and then one of them is saying good one, Chet, and then the dean basically says fraternity is on your marks, but instead of firing the gun bullet into the air to start the race as it normally does with the starting gun, he fires a hole into the robot house's raft, making it defloat. So basically, he intentionally intends for Robot House to lose. I think it's because he doesn't want to lift the multiple secret probation that he has on them, which is dodecatuple. Oh my god. So in this case, I understand his reason for shooting it, but it's unsportsmanlike to do something like that in a race. That's just my opinion about it. Anyway, Fry and Leela and the professor go to look for Gunther in the wild, and then basically Fry says that the jungles on Mars look like just like the jungles on Earth, and then the professor gets thinks that it's a joke that Fry said that, like jungles on Earth, and maybe it's because there are no jungles on Earth in the year 3000 or something. I don't know, but basically what happens is Leela hears some rustling up in the trees, and she thinks that it's Gunther. So basically what happens is the professor throws this grenade that has this tranquilizer gas in it, but it causes a cat to fall out of the tree and some birds to fall from the sky, basically temporarily paralyzing them. And then basically after Leela gets disappointed that it's not Gunther, basically the professor says that they'll be fine once the tranquilizer wears off. But the funny thing is they're not going to be okay because basically an elephant or something falls from the sky, which I think the creators of the show put that in as a joke. I don't really think that the gas would have the ability to reach an elephant unless it was flying, or like if it was in a plane or something. That's the only explanation. So I think they put the elephant part in there as a joke. And then basically what happens is Leela tells the professor that he'll offer Gunther the hat and Fry will offer Gunther the banana. They'll let him decide whether he wants to be intelligent again or remain as a stupid ape. But after she gave Fry the banana, he started eating it, so she gave him a second one. And then basically what happens is after that, they try to have Gunther make the choice whether the professor is saying about the hat and the philosophical ramifications of something, and then Fry's just saying the banana, and then Leela says that she hears a noise, and then they realize that the noise is coming from Bender and the robot house when they're still doing the race, and then the robot house is wondering, Gearshift is wondering, he asks Bender, is he sure that this is a shortcut? And Bender says that not as sure as he was a minute ago. And then when he gets distracted by Fry and Leela, he basically causes something to happen, which causes them to be knocked in, the professor and Leela and Fry to be knocked off on the tree into the river. And then basically, because of that, Gunther is still trying to find out which of the two things he wants to pick up in order to use. But then, basically, because of the situation they're in, basically, Farnsworth is telling Gunther that he has to put on the hat because he's the only one who can save them. But then when he tries to put the hat on, he accidentally puts it on his butt, and then he's like, he first starts chewing on it, and then basically, he's like, basically, the professor's like, stupid monkey, and then basically he puts it on his knee, which doesn't work, and they're like, no, not there, and then he puts it on his butt, which basically causes Fry to make a little bit of a laugh out of it, but then he finally manages to put it on his head, and then after he puts it on his head and he says that it all makes sense, he realizes that they're in danger, so he tells them to wait while he does some calculations, and after doing the calculations, he causes another log to fall into the river to create a rope for them to climb onto, a vine for them to climb onto to keep them safe. And then basically after they get safe, speaking, I'm going to get back into it with Bender here. When they were doing the race part of it, like I said, Gearshift was asking Bender if it was a shortcut, but he said that he wasn't sure as he was sure of it an hour ago, and they fall through this waterfall, which causes them to crash, and then on these rocks, and then, which ironically, it was a shortcut because it takes them close to where the finish line for the regatta is, so in a sense it was a shortcut even though it destroyed their raft, and that actually kind of leads into the ironic thing about the episode, at least in my personal opinion. I find it ironic. Basically what happens is, just as the Snooty fraternity boat is about to win, Dean's like, and the winner is, and then that's when the robot house's rat comes out of the water and crosses the finish line, and he's like, robot house! And then basically he gets startled that Robot House actually won the regatta, which means that their multiple secret probation is lifted. And now getting back into the segment with Fry, Leela, and Bender. After Gunther managed to rescue them by throwing the vine onto the tree to save them, the vine starts breaking, and then basically, and then Leela is wanting Gunther to climb up the vine to save himself, but then Gunther is being miserable and saying that he doesn't know why he should bother. He has nothing to live for. He was miserable as a genius, and as a monkey, he was so stupid. He tried to put a hat on his butt, and then Fry starts laughing about that again. And then basically, that's when Gunther says that there's just no place for him in this world. Although, on the other hand, at that point, the vine snaps and he falls, and then they think he died from the fall, and then because, basically the professor's like, oh, that poor sweet monkey. Well, let's go gather him up. No sense letting him go to waste. And so he licks his chops because he wants to eat him and stuff. But they realize when they get down, they realize that he survived the fall, and he says that the hat must have broke his fall. And then when the professor looks at the hat, he figures that it's only running at half capacity because of the hat being crushed. But he can fix it, and then basically that's when Gunther tells him that he likes it. It actually makes him really happy. But then basically the professor wonders, what about his super intelligence? And he says that, and then that's when Gunther says that basically when he had that, there was too much pressure to use it. All he ever wanted out of life was to be a monkey of moderate intelligence who wears a suit. So that's when he tells them that because of that, he's decided to transfer to business school. And then basically, after that, the professor gets upset about that. He's like, no! And then basically, they're doing the parade segment for Robot House after winning the regatta. And then basically, Bender is telling them, big party in Robot House. And then basically, after that, there's just this little montage of little college things about where each of them was after the ending of the segment of the episode. And the funny thing about Bender's is what his was is he said that his job done, Bender stole everything in Robot House and ran off. That's actually kind of funny. But that's basically where this episode stops. So if you guys like this video when I post it, I am probably going to post it later. After I have my supper and everything. But if you guys like this video when I post it, just please give this video the real best you guys can. And I will see you guys next time for the next video. And like I always tell you with this series, fun on a bun.